Welcome back to Be Productive. This is the show where we talk about key strategies to help you get from just being busy to being productive. As a business owner and leader, when you start to become productive, more business happens, and that's fantastic. But what we also know is that this is going to cause us to have to grow and have to scale with purpose so that we can maintain our levels of productivity. So, to help us with the conversation about how you can scale with purpose and with intention, I am bringing in growth business strategist Mark Wetzig. So, Mark, thanks for helping me with the conversation.
Thank you, Clara. Good to be here.
This is really powerful because I don't think enough of us pay attention to the importance and the thought process that when we do more business, things have to change. And it can cause a lot of stress, it can cause a lot of overwhelm, and there really is a science behind scaling and growing in the right way. So, from a strategist perspective, what are some of the key factors that business owners and leaders should consider when they are scaling their business?
Well, there really are time tested. There are three main reasons that you go through a growth phase, and there's called what I term a bottleneck, and that is there three things really run a business. It's systems and processes, it's people, and then it's the leadership of the owner. So that cycle keeps going through depending on what phase you're in. So often, a business starts up and things are very somewhat informal, maybe bootstrapped together. But then at some point, you need some systems and processes in order to be able to document, things more than just the finances. How do you do things? What are the control mechanisms? And from there, then you start to eventually need people. But if you have additional people without the processes and systems in place, it can easily turn into chaos. So, not only are these three elements a cycle with each other, but they have to be done in the proper sequence. And so, and then the other key thing is leadership. As time goes on, an owner of a startup business has very different roles than an owner of a business doing, say, 5 to 8 million, $10 million a year. And they need to understand that, because you can't affect change in your business if you can't affect change in your own role within your business.
Very true. So I want to go to the second component, the people. I am a firm believer that one of the keys to long term success is building a strong culture and living by the values that leadership and the organization have set. One of the biggest challenges is that when we grow, sometimes we can be at risk for losing some of the continuity in our culture and in the values. So, how do you help business owners balance that growth with the maintenance of their culture and their values?
Well, I think the main thing that I see in business, though not everyone agrees, but I think this is true, is that people want, if you're an employee looking for an employer, you want to be led. But the caveat with that is that you want to have structure in place so that you know what the expectations are. There's some reliability, there's some consistency, and then the leadership ties into that. Leadership, if you're an employee and there's leadership but there's chaos, nobody wins. So it's really that factor of balancing, what are the expectations that are on me as an employee? How do I contribute? How do I help this company grow, and measure my success and support what the owner wants? And then the owner in reciprocation is doing the same thing for their employees. So it becomes a much more synergistic, in a synergistic environment there. And it really does make a difference. I've personally been in both ends of environments, and I can tell you it just makes a huge difference. And with the challenge today of being able to acquire, train, and retain employees, it's a difference maker. It can be a real game changer, because the employment landscape is changing radically in this country, with all the layoffs and the downsizing and the readjusting of corporate America. A lot of people are looking to small businesses the solution. They don't necessarily want to be the owner, but they can contribute in huge ways to the growth of companies But in order to do that, they want that structure, and they want that leadership. They're looking for that, and you have to be able to provide that as part of the leadership component of being the owner.
Absolutely. I see so many times leaders, they start to disappear. And this is when almost more than ever they need to lean in, keep the communication going, keep a pulse point. Because again, even though it's going to change, that's okay. We just need to make sure that, again, we're in it with them and that they, like you talked about, they have that stability because I think people really, look for that. So when you're working with your business owners, what would you say are some of the most common challenges that people have when it comes to scaling their business, and how do you address those?
They don't want to delegate. They don't want to share success. There's kind of there's a boss, or employer, and because the employer is the owner, there's an employer employee wall that happens, usually because, very often because the owner has felt they have to do everything, which in most instances they have. But there's a certain point where you have to release the reins, and you have to trust, and delegate, and move things to other people. So that's probably one of the biggest ones, is being able to release the reins. But if you do that as a responsible owner, as part of your responsibility as an owner, is that you have to give them structure to then perform that delegated duty in. And so that's that balance, to back to what we were talking about initially, about all the commonality and the synergy between processes and systems, people and leadership, because they all three, you have to be aware of all three. Is it perfect? No, there's usually something that kind of gets out of balance. But if there's an awareness as a sensitivity as an owner to constantly looking for improvement, employees can feel that. Employees know that. If you're an employer that is just trying to kind of wring it, ride it out, or wring what you can out of the business, you can feel that as well. So it's just part of the kind of the groundwork for the personality that an owner has to take on with their business. And a lot of people, particularly in the technical world, may not necessarily have evolved or developed the people skills over the years, but they need to, and it's really important for them to, because it with this competitive environment, people will stay because of intangible reasons, and people will leave because of them as well.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that most people don't leave primarily because of money. It's
Yeah.
primarily because of the culture and do they feel valued? And I
Right.
love what you talked about, this idea of you have to evolve. Growth is going to happen, and that's a good thing. But again, it has to be done with purpose. So I love all these topics. And again, you've been doing this for a long time and you've been able to successfully guide so many business owners into being able to grow with purpose. So, where can people find you if others want to reach out and learn more about you and the services that you provide?
My website is www.reignitegrowthcoach.com. My email address is markw@reignitegrowthcoach.com. And then my cell and text number is 303-921-3440.
Beautiful. Well, Mark, thanks again for sharing in the conversation. And for those of you watching, some great tidbits. Remember, we have to constantly evolve. You might be familiar with the quote that says you're either growing or you're dying. So, as a business owner, growth is a good thing. But take some of the tips that we just went over. Be purposeful and have systems in place to help you through the growth. Make sure you are leaning in and really communicating with your team so that you can maintain quality culture. And then again, delegate. You are not going to be able to do it all, nor should you be able to do it all. You need to free your time up to do the things that are going to be the best quality and the highest priorities for you. And when you do all these things, you're going to be able to really just go through that change with more ease and more grace. So thanks for joining the conversation. We'll be right back for more Be Productive.